In a state strapped for childcare, finding a provider can take months or even years. But even then, some parents might have to do it all over again.
Back in March, we reported on the closure of South Burlington Child Care Center Little Beginnings after multiple violations were filed by state inspectors.
At the time, the Department for Children and Families told our reporter Lucy Kale that these instances are not common, but Lucy went to check for herself.
After Little Beginnings closure, I filed a records request with the state asking for all violations by childcare facilities in the last year that involved physical or verbal violence against children. Over a month later, we received records back with 22 violations at 13 different providers. Given that there are over 1,000 childcare centers in the state, that number is relatively small. So I went back to the parents who initially reached out to me about Little Beginnings and asked them about their process of finding another placement that they would feel comfortable in.
It's just unfortunate with how everything worked out because childcare is extremely hard to find.
Rachel and Chris Lorick found Little Beginnings while moving from South Carolina. It was the only place within 50 minutes of their home with an opening. But after just a week, they decided to look for a new care provider because their daughter kept coming home distressed.
The level of anxiety that she had and clinging to us and shaking because she didn't want us to leave, that wasn't normal.
The Loricks pulled their daughter from Little Beginnings a few months before the state shut down the center for multiple violations alleging physical and verbal mistreatment towards the children. They eventually did find a new placement, but wish Vermont had more of a formal and universal process for providers like other states.
We've had a really, in the past, a very instructive onboarding, kind of like getting your kid acclimated and everything else into that institution. So kind of, I guess, being a little bit more strict on the state side when it comes to that.
Some moms, like Yeji Choi, have to place their children on childcare waitlists 6 months before they give birth. Choi also ended up at Little Beginnings.
They fell through last minute. So I was looking for something desperately, and that's how I found Little Beginnings.
Choi's time at Little Beginnings was also short-lived. And when she started the search again, she went in knowing openings aren't always perfect solutions.
And if a daycare has open spot at any time, that means there's something wrong with them. They're losing their, kids because of a reason. So then now I'm self-doubt, I'll double check, just because I was very desperate when I found Little Beginnings, because they really didn't have anywhere else. So I was very grateful that there is an opening, but now I'm taking, I'm looking at it twice. Just because they have opening does not mean it's the best thing. I need to double check.
So after time with the nanny and extensive research and help from parents on social media, she found a spot at Heartworks, and she felt comfortable with her choice.
I mean, she comes home happy, so I can't ask for any better.
I spoke with the Department for Children and Families Deputy Commissioner Janet McLaughlin about parent concerns, and she says the state has thorough regulations and checks for providers.
There were tons of great workers at Little Beginnings.
Yeah.
How do certain leaderships that ended up with the complaints, how did they slip through the cracks of the regulations?
I think, well, I think that running a childcare business is really difficult work. It requires a lot of skill and training, and it can be stressful at times.
She says to make sure people with violations don't go and open up a new place, DCF has an extensive background check process.
The state does a thorough job of vetting who is working in those programs and of ensuring that the programs need to have practices and policies that support the foundational safety of their children.
And Choi says, though the work is daunting, it's worth it.
I don't want people to scare of having a baby or find it is hard, but at the same time there are good places established out there, and then things couldn't work out. You just have to hang in there if you're in the middle of those hardships.
For those looking for their first placement, the state recommends checking the Child Development Division website to see information about any program. Look to a specialist for a referral and talk to other parents. In the studio, Lucy Kale, Channel 3 News.